So far this week, we've looked at how purpose and values are partners, not partners in crime, just partners, just like Batman and Robin or Salt and Pepper. And we've explored the 4 pillars of the framework of the 31 Practices approach. And we've got some people on the call today that have been with us all week. So just to get us going, who'd like to give me the first pillar of the 31 Practices approach? Identify, says Susie. Thank you very much. And then what follows the first pillar? So the second pillar is what? So you remember identify was at 12 o'clock around purpose. And then yes, Nessa, action is at 3 o'clock. And then at the bottom, 6 o'clock after action, we've got today's topic, which is impact. And then at 9 o'clock, we've got refine. So today, the 4th day, we're going to be looking at the topic of impact. And what this is about understanding the impact that we have had on ourselves, but also on direct others, and also on our wider environment. And in our book, My 31 Practices, we quote Fernando Flores. If you've not come across him, a fascinating character, look him up. He was from Chile. He's a businessman, politician, spent, I think, 3 years in prison. And he's known for developing ontological coaching, which is about how people can learn from their experiences and understanding the impact of their actions on themselves and those around them. Now, perhaps at this stage, we could just give an example, and I'll start, but then it would be great to hear from other people in terms of the impact that can occur as a result of our actions, and think about what would not have happened had we not taken that action. The example I'd like to give you is a hypothetical one, and I'd like you to picture a guy or a lady in an office in pre-COVID times, and they've got an office job, so they're sitting at a desk, and they practice their My 31 Practices. One of their values is relationships, and they've worked out that a concrete behavior in honor of that value of relationships would be to introduce themselves to people they don't know yet. So they look at their practice for the morning and they set themselves up for the day. And it just so happens that their desk is not too far away from the lift lobby area. And the lift doors open and there's a guy there with a big box that he's kind of struggling with, and who's unknown to this person who's sitting at the desk. And so he or she decides to go and introduce themselves to the guy with the box getting out of the lift. And it turns out this guy is the new human resources director in the company. As a result of that initial interaction, they become good colleagues. And 18 months later, the person that was sitting at the desk with their practices gets promoted to a new job. Now, just imagine if they did not take that opportunity to make the introduction. Who knows? Who can tell? Who will ever know? But the promotion might not have been awarded. So I'd be really interested to hear any personal stories from yourselves around where you've had a very clear understanding of the impact of an action that you've taken. Do any come to mind?
Hi, actions I've taken with this group, just so, you know, every day, every time I find an amazing new coach and they deliver their coaching week into this group, it has a ripple effect and people take something away from that. So I'm delivering that each and every day, really, so which is great.
Thank you, Susie. Anybody else? I've got another example that I can share from this group this week. But before I do that, if anybody's got a personal example, it would be great to hear. If not, then I'll just remind us of how Roy, who's on the road driving today, I think, put a post up and included the Karate Kid clip. And somebody responded saying, it's good to be kind to yourself, and I'm going to count how many times I smile today. And I saw that and it made me smile. And I responded to that person saying, you've not just been kind to yourself, because you've made me smile today as well. So it's emphasizing Susie's point about the ripple effect. And actually, it went further, because this guy, who I didn't know, I think it must be a contact of Roy's, is in the world of teaching. And it so happens that with the work that I do with World Values Day, there seems to be some appetite for a poetry or haiku competition in conjunction with World Values Day and the theme this year, which is reconnecting. And so I just messaged this guy saying, this is what we're thinking about. Do you have any connections that might be interested? He replied saying, yeah, the thing is, schools are having a bit of a tough time at the moment. And so I responded saying, yeah, I understand that. World Values Day is in October. So this could be part of the building back process to engage the pupils and the teachers together, doing something fun and inspiring. And he came back saying, what a great idea. And I don't know whether anything will come from that or not. But what I do know is that that interaction would not have happened if it hadn't been for Roy's post. And Roy should know that the impact of his post has extended far beyond himself and that other guy and me. So I find it absolutely fascinating to understand. And Roy, I know, also is a fan of the butterfly effect, which is another way of framing the ripple effect. So the purpose for mentioning those stories is just to reinforce the point that we sometimes underestimate the impact of what we do. And partly that is because sometimes we don't even know the impact. And I'll give you another story of a colleague of mine. We had a session talking about gratitude. And on her way home on the tube, she decided that she was going to give a guy that was on the street begging some money. And she offered him, I think it was £2. And he looked at her and said, haven't you got a fiver, love? And she explained how furious she was with this reaction. And she said she almost went and got her £2 back and kind of stomped off in a bit of a huff. But then people said to her, well, who's to say whether you had an impact or not? It might be that after that reaction and your response, the guy won't do that to other people. And maybe he will express gratitude more freely. It's just that you don't know. So the point here is, have confidence in whatever it is that you decide to do. Seek to understand the impact. But if you're not able to, don't kind of take that as a negative. Don't let it stop you doing what you do. And this comes on to a couple of other points around impact. And these 2 points are part of our lives from a very, very early age. So I think we're all fairly mature on this call. And I think you'll still all be able to remember do you remember getting a gold star at school? I remember getting a gold star at school. And whether it be a gold star or a tick or a running board or whatever, recognition and measurement are really important parts of our lives. And those 2 elements are really useful. Susie, I remember getting the belt and ruler more. I remember getting the cane at school when I was 10. So we had our school, I think it must have been maybe 2 or 3 stories high. I'm thinking probably 2. Anyway, there was a banister. And all my pals used to be able to slide down the banister, lean across it and then slide down. And I think it was because I was too scared of going too fast. I used to hold on too tight, and so I could never do it. And then eventually one day I managed to do it, and I was so pleased with myself as I got off at the bottom, only to be confronted by a teacher who said, go to the headmaster's office, and I got the cane for it. Anyway, back to the point about measurement and recognition. These are two very useful approaches to use when we're assessing our impact, because if we don't assess it, then how can we know what impact we've had when we're able to? And measurement can be in two forms, quantitative and qualitative, and they're both as useful as each other. And recognition is something that we thrive on, and so is very useful as well. However, I'd like to place a health warning on measurement, because in the world today, measurement has assumed a role where sometimes it causes more damage than it does cause good. And that's because it becomes the be all and end all rather than a guide. And I'd like to tell you two stories just to demonstrate the point. The first one is a call center. So the people running the call center decided that they should, all calls should be answered within 3 rings so that the customers would get brilliant service. So they agreed that a brilliant way to make sure this would happen was to bonus the call operators. So if they answered all of their calls within 3 rings, they'd get paid more. And so they implemented that because obviously that would work, wouldn't it? Shortly after, they were confused because they were paying out bonuses all the time, but also receiving lots of customer complaints. And did they put more staff on? No, they didn't put more staff on. They started to receive complaints. And when they investigated this, guess what was happening? If you haven't guessed, call operators were cutting off customers mid-call in order to answer a new incoming call within 3 rings to get their bonus. Second story, a bus company, similar sort of thing. So the bus drivers were incentivized to be on time, and they had to be on time something like 90% of the bus stops in order to get their bonus. So what did the bus drivers do? If they were running late, even if there were people standing at the bus stop, they would just drive by so that they would catch up. So those two examples demonstrate how you've got to be really, really careful with measurement, that it doesn't take over, because you can actually end up with a result that is the opposite of what your intention was. And this is exactly the same with our own behaviors. Now, the way that I use recognition and measurement with my 31 practices is through use of journaling. So that's the qualitative piece. But also at the end of each day, I rate myself out of 6 stars, you remember the stars from school, as to how well we think we've done today on our practice. However, the aim in my head is not to always achieve 6 stars. That's not the purpose of the measurement. The purpose of the measurement is simply to be honest and give an assessment of performance. And then to ask the question, how did you do that? Or why did you not do better today? So sometimes, if for, like last week, I remember one day was just back to back all day, and I have to confess, I did not find time for my practice. And that might sound criminal for somebody that created the thing and is suggesting that that's what we should be doing to lead a better life. But I didn't do it. And so my score at the end of the day was a 1. And my reflection was that I really should avoid stacking my day out so much, because I didn't leave time to do the thing. Similarly, if I do it really well, so yesterday it was random acts of kindness day, and I had made a promise to myself that I would find a way to be kind to everybody that I interacted with through the day. And at the end of the day, I just worked through people that I'd been in touch with during the day, and I'd done a pretty good job. It was because I was being very conscious and intentional about it. And it was a good feeling as I fell asleep last night. So the purpose of the measurement is not the measurement in itself. It's for you to understand your performance better. So just be a bit wary of measurement and not let it grow arms and legs and take control, but do use it. And before we came on live, I sent to Susie an editable PDF, which you're able to use if you choose to use my 31 practices. So the PDF sheet enables you to fill in your values, fill in your 31 practices, fill in your daily execution or experience of your practice, and give yourself a rating. And you can either complete that online, or if you prefer, you can print it off as a hard copy and write it. And then what you can do is just keep the sheet for each month. And then at the end of the year, you know, if you start this, say for March, then you've got 10 months of you practicing your values in a conscious way at the end of the year. And the reason this journaling is so important is that when you're doing the journaling, psychologically, you're reinforcing it to yourself. And there is some benefit here of writing rather than typing. There's something more personal about writing, but you know, in these times, not everybody is not a lot of people write a lot anymore. And in some ways, that's an even bigger reason for doing it. You know, the other day I saw something about the power of writing a letter in these times when we've been distanced from people. So consider journaling, and then whether you do it online or in writing is up to you. But the beauty of it is, imagine on New Year's Eve. Now this this might make me sound like a sad person, but forgive me if that's the case. But imagine on New Year's Eve, before you start having a couple of beers or a glass of wine or whatever it is, if that's what you do on New Year's Eve, imagine just flicking through all of your journal sheets from March and just scanning all of the great stuff that you've done. And just imagine if you are practicing each day from the 1st of March, that will be something like nearly 300 experiences that you will have had as a result of your actions, which are explicitly connected to your values. And that would be a really great reinforcement to yourself of how you have been living your life in line with your values. So there's a plug for journaling if you would be interested to do that. And because we've been together for a week as well, and I think all of you have been here most of the week. So here's an offer. If you would like to progress the idea of my 31 practices, then I would be happy to host you for a coaching session. And I'm thinking maybe we could do this as a group, actually. So the way that it would normally work is that we would have an initial briefing session so that you kind of understood what you wanted to do. Then you would go away and start to do some work with it. A week or maybe two later, we would reconvene, and together we would explore what progress you've made and what challenges you're experiencing, what successes you've had. Not expecting you to have completed your 31 practices at this stage. But then you'd get a sense of direction and some input from each other and also from me, so that you can go away and kind of finish off, or pretty much finish off your practices. And then we would have a third and final session where we just kind of cross the T's and dot the I's, so that you've got a set of my 31 practices that you're really comfortable with and you're happy to work with. So because we've been together for a week, I feel that I'd like to do that if any of you would. If you're happy just to go and do it on your own, then that's up to you, and you know, don't feel any sense of obligation. And if the 31 practices approach is not for you, because you know somebody said, oh, that's the worst thing I can imagine, being told what I'm going to do each day, And my response to them was, well, treat it a bit like Russian roulette and put a pin in your 31 practices so it's not so structured. But if that structure is not really your thing and you'd rather do it a different way, then that's absolutely fine too. So today, what we've talked about is the importance of following up on clarity in identifying what it is you're going to do, then the action that you take as a result of that. And today we've talked about how important it is to assess the impact, recognize the impact that you've had on yourself, direct others, and your wider environment. And we'll see you tomorrow when we're going to have a recap of what we've done during the course of the week. We will look at refine, which is the final pillar of the 31 practices approach. So have a great day and see you tomorrow.